You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm Frank Morano. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to talk with Eileen Fisher, the matchmaker and radio talk show hostess, a woman that knows more about love, relationships, and sex, quite frankly, than all the rest of them combined. But the big news of the day is the fact that all the American troops are withdrawing from Syria, not just northern Syria, but the entire country of Syria. Russia is coming in and saying we're going to protect the Kurds. The Kurds are saying, well, we're going to try and work out something with the Assad regime to make sure there's no animosity there. And the Turks are saying, we don't care if Mike Pompeo and Mike Pence are coming here. We don't want to meet with them. And meantime, here in America, you have a lot of members of Congress threatening to institute sanctions. Just moments ago, the president was in Washington. He talked about the situation in Syria. This is what he said.
So I view the situation on the Turkish border with Syria to be, for the United States, strategically brilliant. Our soldiers are out of there. Our soldiers are totally safe. They've got to work it out. Maybe they can do it without fighting. Syria is protecting the Kurds. That's good. We are, and by the way, every player hates ISIS. Everybody we're talking about. Syria more than us. Russia more than us. They've done a big number on Russia. And we're over there fighting ISIS, but they're over there fighting ISIS too. They can handle it.
And just moments ago, literally right after that, the president said the following: they've got a lot of sand over there, so there's a lot of sand that they can play with, he said, of the Syria situation, which is an interesting way of looking at it. But the bottom line remains the same: one less war that we're involved in. The bottom line is, look, America has way too many of these alliances. There are way too. Do you realize we are treaty bound to protect Montenegro if they're attacked? We are bound by treaty to protect Estonia if they're attacked. How much American blood, how much American treasure are you willing to expend to protect Montenegro? How many American troops do you think we should be willing to sacrifice to protect the Kurds from Turkey? I'll give you my answer: zero. Zero. So we're going to get into that a little bit later with Michael Tracy, who's going to join us at the top of the hour. And we're going to talk Medicare with a real expert, because a lot of you, especially after our segment yesterday on insurance and health insurance, have questions about Medicare open enrollment, how that affects your pocketbook, how that affects your health care, and what the different plans from the various presidential candidates might mean for us. The other story that I found just delightful is that California is doing something that is way overdue, is they are starting their school class times later. I'll tell you, what's happening here in New York is absolutely insane. These kids are wandering into school like zombies at 7:15, 7:30, 7:45, and there is no learning going on for the beginning of the day. There's a whole lot of sleeping going on. I'm not sure how these kids are expected to be productive when they're not even awake. So we're going to get into that with Pavlina Asta, the host of If God Had a Podcast. She'll break down that for us. And the Trump administration is moving to expand logging in the nation's largest national forest. Needless to say, much like almost everything Donald Trump does, this is pretty controversial. I'm not sure what the rationale is, quite frankly, for increasing logging in the nation's largest national forest. We're going to delve into that story if we can. If you have any insight, you're welcome to find us on Twitter at Liquid Lunch TV and tweet me. And you can also find me on Twitter at Frank, Morano. One piece of good news, if you're a Trump supporter, is that if you go by election models that have historically been accurate, Donald Trump is well on his way to a re-election. If you go based on the economic data that is, and this is not a joke, I see some of you smiling, but if you go by I'm going to link to this on my Facebook page, but if you go by the economic data that historically we've seen previous presidents judged by, Moody's Analytics has measured presidential contests since 1980, and they say, based on their model, which has only missed one presidential election in all that time, they found that Donald Trump could easily win an even greater electoral landslide than he did in 2016. So I think that's pretty interesting if you go by the economic data and what is playing out there. So We're going to break that down for you. Coming up next, we'll talk relationships and love with Eileen Fisher. She's a host of a terrific radio show here in New York City. She's also a matchmaker to the stars. If you have questions about relationships, she's the kind of person you should be listening to. And if you are lovelorn yourself, she can explain to you maybe what you're doing wrong. So we're also going to check in with our friend John Tabacco once more from Florida if we can get his Skype connection working again. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm Frank Moreno. Stay with us right after this. We'll be back with Eileen Fisher.